everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast. There are many Chicago Cubs podcasts, as I can certainly confirm after social media night at Wrigley yesterday. But this is one of them. I'm Kevin McCaffrey, and this is Adam Mamawala's here, too.
Hey, I'm here. I'm not laying in bed with you, which is where you're laying right now, in your stepdad's bed.
Sick. Hashtag sexed. You should. I think you should take a photo of what the screen looks like right now.
I probably should.
As we are Skyping, because it does look absurd. There's really no way, the way I have to be positioned, there's no way I cannot look like I'm sort of trying to come on to Adam here through the Skype. I'm just kind of leaning down on my left elbow. Hey, what's up? Want to talk?
It's a real come hither pose.
It is. There's no other way but to come hither pose right now.
I assume it's more of a product of where the Wi-Fi is best in the place that you are in.
That is exactly true. For some reason, it has been extremely hard for me to find working Wi-Fi in Elmhurst, Illinois. Although, I'm in society. This is a real, there's a population around here. But we're making it work long distance, you and me, Adam.
We really are. There's been a lot of flip-flopping of one of us being in Chicago while the other is in New York, and eventually at some point we will be in New York talking at the same time. But until that happens, follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Once again, our episode is sponsored by Thrive Fantasy. You can follow them at Thrive Fantasy, and we'll do a little ad read later. I guess for this week we can we can talk about the over/under for games Anthony Rizzo will miss, but let's not start there because that's a bummer.
Sure, yeah, you can heartbreaking props via our sponsor.
That would be interesting. I wonder if that does exist somewhere. Probably. Are there prop bets that are that weird?
There are, but I don't think on Thrive, but they're just like hard to find though. The online gambling places I've used. The weirdest I've found is just like you can bet on who the new pope is, but but it's not like the current pope is fine, but it's sort of like, what have you heard, betting website? What's going on with that?
I mean, I'm sure you could bet on who's going to be the Democratic nomination or something like that. There's got to be like 1,000 to 1 Andrew Yang bets you can throw in there.
Throw it down. But I feel like you really, for the best weird prop bets, I think you got to like personally know a bookie who's just like running it on his own.
We'll just take your weird action.
Yeah, exactly. And my mom's husband Wally he knows a guy, so that's pretty fun. Like an old school bookie guy here in Chicago.
A guy who will break your legs.
Yeah, but not as long as you're cool. It's just right. As long as everyone's handling their business. But hopefully the saddest thing of this week, obviously, is the Rizzo bad-looking ankle turn. Apparently, so he had an MRI. There's not a break. But it does seem to be a pretty significant sprain, right? So
yeah, it did not look good. Let's start with more happy news though. You were at social media night last night, Cubs social media night. How was that, and who did you meet?
It was nice. We met a bunch of people. I'm trying to think the people we talked to most. Certainly, re-met our friends Sarah and Andy, our best podcast buds.
And had you met Sarah in person before?
No, I hadn't. So I guess yes. I guess that I officially met Sarah Sanchez from Bleed Cubby Blue and Cuppa Cubby Blue, our podcast friends. So I got to meet Sarah in person. That was very fun. We all hung out at Nisei Lounge after the game, and we hung out before the game at the Budweiser something or other. Budweiser Brick House, I think, is the place right next to Wrigley. People played a trivia game. I think whoever won the at Cubs people ran a trivia contest based on Cubs social media, and whoever won it got to throw out the first pitch.
God damn it.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been way better than singing the seventh inning stretch at a musical.
Yeah. Yeah, which Adam did get bumped from. Did we ask who ended up singing that seventh inning stretch?
It was someone from like a morning radio show or something like that.
Okay, sure. But there, Crawley, who's a guy who's very active on Cubs Twitter, like Crawley Cubs Kingdom. He was leading the trivia for 19 of the 20 questions and then lost, and then someone jumped ahead of him on the final
Wow,
question.
what a 2018 Cubs storyline that is.
It really was. He got upended at the end. I didn't see who exactly won and got to throw the first pitch. I just saw that Crawley lost, basically.
He got he lost out to Cato Kalin at the last second.
Yeah, Cato jumped in. But yeah, met Brett Taylor briefly, of Bleacher Nation, obviously. Nice. He was hanging out pretty late. I got Bleacher Jeff was another guy I met. It's funny talking about the people you meet from like Cubs Twitter kingdom, because it's like naming wrestling names. It's not like even actual people's names.
Please tell me Charles Meow was there.
Charles Meow, if he was staying undercover pretty good.
Katy Perry's booty hole?
I did not see Katy Perry's booty hole in any sense yesterday. Met our friend, met Kim at KAF Shy 18, a Twitter friend of ours. Got to meet her in person, so it was fun. It was a nice hang, and we did most of the actual hanging at the Nisei Lounge after a very nice win.
Nice.
So it was really nice that the Cubs got a win out of it too. Would have been a bummer to be hanging out with all those people and really sad afterwards. So
were any of the Cubs like journalists there, or were they too cool for school?
If they were, I didn't notice. It was no one. I didn't see Jesse Rogers, didn't see Sahadev. So I think it was mostly just your real Twitter peeps for the most part.
Well, they're not going to rub elbows with fake journalists like us.
No, they don't. Yeah, they're not going to sully themselves that way. But and our friend Ken Schultz was hanging as well. Ken Schultz and my brothers Joe and Pat were along as well. So it was a fun night, and a lot of nice people. Nice to see people from from your phone come to life.
Totally, and largely you you enjoyed meeting them.
Yeah, I would say I enjoyed.
not that I expect you to like drag somebody that was like boring that you met, but I feel like sometimes the idea of meeting people from Twitter in real life just inherently sounds frightening.
Sure, totally. Sometimes people are best left where you found them, kind of. But no, I think Andy and Sarah are a blast. Obviously, which we knew anyway, and most of the people I met were very nice. I would say I found one person to be extremely annoying, and I won't say who. So
name names. You
gotta subscribe to our Patreon if you want me to tell you who's the real dink. But it was
it's funny.
It was a good time.
I wish it were Cato. I know it's not. And frankly, it would be a real Cato-ass move to just be like randomly staying with people where he's not fully welcome.
Yes, it would. Cato. That would have been that. Cato's just on a couch at the Nisei Lounge,
just wearing like a shirt with like a poop emoji.
Yeah, that would be perfect. He's not doing anything else. He should have been there, but So thumbs up on the social media night overall. I would say.
That's awesome. I was hoping to see you in the group picture that they posted. The Cubs Twitter posted some sort of like group picture from social media night, but.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
I saw Sarah and Andy in it. I'm not sure who else was in there, but
we didn't make the cut, I guess.
I will assume you were ripping a shot of Jameson when that photo was taken.
That is, it's possible I was. I can't say that I remember all of it, but good. It was a nice evening.
Nice. Well, so the last time you and I spoke was last Tuesday, and it was after the Nico debut, which was awesome. He's continued to be awesome. Going into those last three games against the Padres, obviously we were hoping to do better than, winning one of those three. And the Tuesday night game was particularly heartbreaking. That was the one where the Cubs came back a number of times. There was that tough Zobrist error for a second straight night. Yeah. Cishek ends up walking the world and walks in the winning run, which honestly, like, as brutal as the Harper grand slam was, I would rather see the Cubs get walked off on a grand slam than a walk with the bases loaded. That's so frustrating.
It feels extreme. It just feels helpless, watching.
Because you can feel it happening, and there's like nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and last night, Cishek, I think it was his first appearance since then, and it ended up fine, but he also just seemed like he was really nibbling and not quite locating.
Yeah, and I mean, you were at the game, but last night was not the night to nibble because whoever was the home plate ump was all over the place, both in favor of and against the Cubs. But there was really very little consistency, and there were a lot of balls that were strikes that were called balls, and vice versa. So, credit to Cishek for, I believe, striking out Eugenio Suarez, who's been one of the hottest hitters in baseball of
Yeah,
late. And otherwise, they mostly walked him, which I'm completely fine with.
absolutely. I mean, Suarez is just. We were talking. Ken and I were talking at the game about this. Just like it's incredible how much people don't talk about how good that guy is. He's got 47 bombs. He's going to end up the year with probably 50 homers,
Yeah,
and he can play a good shortstop, and he's a very good defensive third baseman. Um, the on base numbers are high. He's a fucking star. Suarez really is, and people
he
don't.
is. He's definitely in the Ketel Marte category for best players no one knows about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good comp. But they ultimately took care of business. Yeah. So after, as you were saying, that was a really terrible loss, and it seems like Zobrist has come back offensively fine. You know.
Yeah, he's hitting like 340.
Yeah, he's doing. You know, he's doing what he does. He hit one homer, so that's nice. But otherwise the power's not really there. But he's hitting singles, he's hitting line drives, and he's taking his walks, and that's what you want from him. It does seem like he is very rusty defensively. Like obviously, two errors, one error led to the loss basically last week, and then yesterday he had a ball just go right off his glove too.
Right.
He just doesn't seem to defensively be what what you
Well,
hope.
but he's also almost 40 and hasn't played in 4 months, so it's like
Right.
it's not surprising that that's the case. And I think ultimately, with Baez down and now with Rizzo down, probably till the end of the regular season, they are gonna. There may be a time where in a close game something happens defensively that costs them, and there's not a lot they can do about it because they're. I mean, the value of Rizzo in the infield is almost as high as what Baez brings to the table because of how many errors Rizzo saves over there. We were talking. You talked about it last week. I mean, even in Nico's debut, he probably has 2 throwing errors, if not for Rizzo being who Rizzo is. And you're not going to get that from Caratini or Happ.
Right, absolutely. And Caratini and Happ have been fine over there. Happ was really good the other day. Started a great double play on the game on Sunday over there at first. But yeah, you Rizzo might be the most overlooked great player on this team, and I think hopefully we don't feel it as much as I anticipate we will over the next couple weeks. But it really makes you feel better to have him vacuuming up everything at first base for sure.
Well, and by virtue of the fact that the Cubs have won the last 4 games pretty handily, those kinds of small defensive mistakes don't loom as large because you can either make up for them, or if they happen, it's like not as a crucial of a spot. But if you're talking about a 2-1 game tonight and the Cubs don't have Kimbrel in their closing, and you have some sort of defensive miscue from an infield that's comprised of like, Bodie, Kemp, Nico, and Happ or whatever, like you're going to notice the difference.
Right. Yeah. Totally. It's but as you say, if the Cubs just want to keep scoring in the teens every game, then we'll probably be okay. This week has been a really fun offensive explosion. It has felt like offensively, it's felt like 2016 over the last few days, where it's just a relentless offense that is working counts and not swinging at bad pitches all of a sudden, and then finding the pitch to hit and hammering it. It has been just
it's been pretty exceptional. I mean, if there I don't know that there's ever been a better advertisement for cortisone shots than Chris Bryant over the past week, because he's been outstanding. Nico has been great. Schwarber might hit 40 home runs this year. Castellanos hits a double every single game. Yeah. And it's really been impressive, especially without Baez and now without Rizzo for the last couple of games. Will it continue indefinitely? No, I don't think that the Cubs are going to be putting up double-digit runs against the Cardinals. It would be amazing if they did, but you can't expect that to continue. But the Cubs have put themselves in a position now, and we'll backtrack a little bit, where we're recording this Tuesday afternoon. The Cubs are 2 games back in the division. They are half a game out of the first wild card spot. And the Cardinals are playing the Nationals the next couple nights. And if the Cubs are able to take care of business the next 2 nights, they will either be close to first in the Central or definitely be that first wild card spot.
Yeah. This is really, really crunch time over the next few days, where it's playing the series right now against the Reds is basically the last series the Cubs have a chance to really make up ground on a team that I mean they'll have that little 3-gamer against the Pirates in between all the Cardinals games, but yeah, it's about to just be head to head for the division now. It's coming up hard. I just saw this stat, by the way, as we were talking about a minute ago about Castellanos hitting a double every day. Castellanos is the third right-handed hitter in history to have 55 doubles and 25 homers in a season, and the other two were guys from the 30s, Hall of Famers Hank Greenberg and Joe Medwick. So yeah, Nicky Two Bags, a lot of doubles.
Yeah, he's obviously slowed down a bit from his torrid start with the Cubs, but I mean, it does feel like every game he doubles.
Yeah, and that's statistically basically the case. Yeah.
Right. So basically, to backtrack, the Cubs lose a couple. They lose Tuesday night in San Diego. Wednesday night was like one of the most disheartening losses of the season, where they just did literally nothing offensively against the Padres and just felt very listless. And you just kind of had a feel. And what was really frustrating is those 2 nights the Cubs lost, the Cardinals also lost to a bad Rockies team, and you had a real golden opportunity there to make up some ground. However, on Thursday, the Cubs come out, have a nice game. They shut down the Padres. Ian Happ comes up with a big hit. The Cubs end up at least salvaging a split there, and then they head home. And after the top of the first inning on Friday, you're thinking to yourself, like, is this just it for this team? Like, is this really how this weekend is going to play out?
Right.
Because you have some really sloppy defense from Almora, and all of a sudden the Cubs are down 4-0 in the top of the first, and then they respond immediately and really didn't look back after that. I mean, after that 4-0 start, I would have to be just, ballparking it, but they must have outscored the Pirates about 48-8 the rest of the weekend.
Right. Yeah. It was. I was watching that game live, and Lester's been rough, man. But Lester's older now, and this might just be where he's at in his career. Where going into next year, you're hopefully not putting him in a position where he's more than your 4th or 5th starter. But yeah, Lester gives up those 4 runs right away, and you're just like, well, are we done for the season? Like you said, it really felt like that might be it. And then they came back just absolutely hammering the ball, and they haven't stopped hitting since. And, I feel like going into that game too, heard a lot of people talking about how Madden is basically surely out now. Like that's something people have been talking about a lot over the past week or two. And I think it's one of those things where it's hard to tell what kind of effect a manager's vibe has on the team. But if we're going to talk about the vibe being bad, we have to talk about it being good too. And Madden made a point of saying in San Diego, the clubhouse, the dugout was too quiet, that everyone that he felt like everyone was too tense, and he basically implored everyone to, specifically he said, play with your hair on fire, see what happens. And it seems like everyone did start having more fun and like being a little bit louder and more playful and stuff. And that could have an effect, it's, you don't know, but it's been a lot more fun over the past.
And in classic Madden fashion, he called that back, like his own quote. After I think Friday's game, where he was like, "Oh, you should have smelt all the burnt hair in the dugout. It smelled terrible."
Yeah, he really took the metaphor and just like kept going to a point where it's like, Joe, this sounds unpleasant, but do what you got to do.
Joe, are you having a stroke?
Yeah, Joe, do you
smell burnt toast?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's the hair is a flame. It seems like.
Well, and what was really awesome about this weekend is that just because, as Cubs fans, I think part of us will always be inherently pessimistic. You kind of had that in the back of your head after a game like Friday, or especially after Friday and Saturday, that you're like, okay, watch them go lose 1-0 on Sunday.
Right.
And they just kept the scoring up, and it carried over into last night as well. And as far as Sunday is concerned, you were not at that game, right?
No.
Were you watching it when the Rizzo play happened?
Oh yeah. I was watching. I was watching it live.
I was not watching it. We have a group chat with Ken, and I had noticed that Ken had commented something pretty depressing about. I didn't even know who he was referring to at the time, but
right.
Yeah, that was rough. What were your? I mean, when you saw that happen, what were your initial thoughts other than like, oh fuck?
Well, Rizzo's not a drama king, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he has been a relative Iron Man for this team for a long time. So you could tell as soon as he was down that it was he was going to be out a while. Like, he basically he seemed angry about it. He seemed, he would hit the ground pretty hard a couple of times, and then you saw basically everyone on the field come into Rizzo. Like even
Yep.
all the outfielders came all the way in, which you don't see on most injuries. A, unless it's serious, and B, unless it's a guy who is a real leader of that team. You
Yeah,
know,
I got to be honest. Even watching it, not live. When I went back and I watched it in real time, I was like getting emotional watching it, and like we have a relationship with these guys, and especially with Rizzo. I mean, he's the person that I think most of us probably feel like closest with in terms of just how long he's been with this team, and seeing him on bad Cubs teams, and now being here for these past 5 years. And there's a moment where he's on the ground and he's like kind of writhing around, and he's like got his hand over his face, and then Madden comes over, and you see Rizzo like kind of grab Madden's foot like a little kid like grabbing at his like mom or dad, and it like for some reason like that, just seeing that like hand motion and then Madden like kind of kneeling down got me kind of choked up because you could tell how bad it was.
yeah, you could just tell. As people were saying, wait for the MRI, all that stuff. But it really felt like you could just from as you say, from the physical reactions of everybody involved, you could basically ballpark. Well, this is going to be a couple of weeks. It's not. This isn't nothing. That it wasn't. It seemed like everybody knew that this wasn't a one-day thing. This is possibly, borderline season ender for that guy. And obviously Yelich, the Brewers lost Yelich and have gone 9-1 over their last 10. Of course,
Right.
of course that would happen. Brewers lost Yelich and Hira, so it's like they've had huge injury problems too. At this point, losing Baez and Rizzo that's also two guys who have finished in the top 5 of the MVP voting. And going to the end of the year without guys like that is a real fucking bummer, dude.
It is. Quick side note: is there a reason that I don't know if it's just Cubs fans or everybody keeps like trolling the Brewers about Yelich? Is it because they were so dramatic about losing him? Because I feel like I keep seeing all these tweets like making fun of like the Brewers for honoring their fallen hero and the fact that Christian Yelich is dead.
Yeah, a lot of RIP Yelich stuff, and just like
Where did that come from?
they just like I think immediately afterwards they were talking about like he meant a lot to this team. We're gonna play for him, just as if it was a win one for the Gipper situation. I guess like Ryan Braun wearing his jersey under his own jersey was a thing that happened. He
Really did that?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He wore like the Yelich jersey, and then he homered with it on. Yeah. So I think just basically how they reacted to the drama around that. Because I mean, it sucks to lose Rizzo, but you haven't seen, I guess, the same sort of stuff from the Cubs.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but apparently Kyle Ryan was actually wearing Craig Kimbrell's jersey underneath his last night to get a couple outs.
Oh man, well it worked. Shoot it up, Kyle Ryan. He had to really be inspired on the way to closing out a 6-run lead in the ninth.
Oh man, but yeah, I wasn't watching it.
Just talking about injuries, losing two guys who were top 5 MVP guys throughout their career, and then a Hall of Fame closer. Losing that is no fun either.
Yeah, and this is more of an off-season discussion, but I have to think between what happened with Holland last year and what has happened with Kimbrel this year, the willingness of teams to sign guys that late into the season may start waning because now we have still a small sample size, but it doesn't seem like a coincidence.
Right. Yeah. It seems like it's right. It could be a coincidence, but it also seems like somehow the baseball conditioning was not there,
right.
in both of those guys' cases. It could be bad luck, but whatever. It's not. It's not a look that inspires confidence.
No, not at all. So after that happens with Rizzo, and he limps off the field with Hayward's help and with the help of a trainer. Q just completely unravels, and I don't blame him. I understand that he was probably affected by what had just happened. But I mean, I haven't, and you could feel it watching the game, so I can only imagine what it was like in the stadium. The only time I can remember Wrigley sounding that way, where it just sounds like kind of like hollow, and there's this like weird like pall over the stadium, was I think I can't remember it being like that for an injury that I can recall, and maybe I'm wrong, but the games that came to mind were like, as they were losing in 2017 in that blowout to the Dodgers, and you're just like playing at the end of that game, and the same thing in the 2015 NLCS, and then um, Game 4 of the World Series when they're down big, and it's just this like kind of weird funereal sort of vibe, and it was like palpable.
Mm. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, and it had been so fun before that because Rizzo had or excuse me, not Rizzo. Bryant had homered. The Cubs, offense was really going, and it changed from like, oh well, we were getting on a roll, and now losing. If you had to pick one guy as a team leader on the team, losing that guy in that moment felt like it could also be a season ender. And to their credit, they responded really well that game and have responded well since. It's like it would have been easy to go in the tank that game, and obviously like Quintana basically completely lost it against an offense that sucks. So that wasn't great. But the bullpen stepped up and the offense stepped up.
Yeah, the Cubs bullpen has the lowest ERA in September, which is amazing. Knock on wood for that. And it's been huge because you essentially, it seems to me that for the last, I don't know, large percentage of starts, Lester, Hamels, and Q cannot go even past 5 innings. No, so you essentially just have Hendricks and Darvish pitching well right now.
Yeah, from the starters, you are basically making it look like you have a 2-man rotation, right, between Darvish and Hendricks. And guys like Chatwood and Mills have really picked it up too in terms of long relievers. I really like what we've seen from Alec Mills. The guy just throws strikes. He throws strikes and doesn't get hit too hard. Chatwood's been great. It's just like, but man, it just shows you how weird bullpens are and how important the Cubs bullpen has been when you look at the list of names. And if you had seen this list at the beginning of the year, you'd be like, what happened? Did the Cubs? Did like a plane full of relievers just crash somewhere, get lost? Like how did we end up with 2 guys named Wick spelled differently?
Yeah,
2 guys named Wick in the bullpen. Phelps, we've got a Mills and Chatwood being the most important dudes. I think
just real quick to jump in, I think I texted you this. I don't know if we said it on the podcast. It has a real end of last year feeling where it's like, how the hell is Jorge De La Rosa the guy that we're going to get big outs? And somehow it's working, but it's like it doesn't seem like things had to have gone horribly wrong for that to be going on.
Yeah, right. And it's like, and they kind of have, and yet here we are, and it's kind of working for the moment, and needs to work for about another month, ideally. But talking about the problem with the starters, Hamels just looks like he can't locate anything right now. I don't know. I was at the game, so I didn't see and I know you said the umpiring was inconsistent at best, but it just seemed like Hamels was really struggling the whole time, and that's 3 starts in a row now where his pitch count has gotten really high, and he hasn't gotten through the 5th.
Well, it seems to me that that his oblique must still be bothering him, and I've never pitched before, but I would have to think that that's a fairly important part of your body in terms of locating and just being able to pitch and have your mechanics right. So he certainly doesn't seem right. Quintana seems like he's susceptible to the Quintana inning, which is something that has seemingly plagued him for his entire Cubs career, where he'll be zipping along and then all of a sudden a couple things go wrong. And it's kind of like Darvish at the beginning of last year, where it's like all of a sudden a couple little things snowball and you've gone from a really good start to giving up 5 or 6 runs in an inning. And Lester is Lester. He's always going to battle, but the results have really not been there. And I'm specifically looking at his start tomorrow as hopefully being a chance for him to get back on track, because tonight is going to be interesting. Any more thoughts before I do a quick ad read, and then we can do a little preview of the next week or so?
No, let's ad read it up. Who is sponsoring us today, Adam? We already said, but let's see.
Yeah, once again, we are sponsored by Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is a new DFS app for prop bets. They have streamlined the drafting process and eliminated the need to do unnecessary hours of research by using only top tier athletes. So instead of the traditional salary cap format, you build your lineup around a list of prop bets. Each unique prop has an over and under point value assigned to it, and you will be rewarded that point value if that prop is correct. For example, we had to switch out Anthony Rizzo because it's no longer relevant.
Yeah.
But will Chris Bryant have over or under 1.5 hits plus RBIs in tonight's game? I'm going to take the over on that one.
Yeah, over it.
Yeah.
Over it and that check.
Right. So basically, the way it works is that the less likely the prop is to occur, the more points the choice will be worth, and you build your team score around the amount of correct props you select. And you can use promo code AWAYGAMES and get a free $10 bonus with your first deposit of $10 or more. Nailed the ad read.
You sure did nail the ad read, and that, as we have said before, even if you don't understand gambling, if you use the promo code AWAYGAMES at Thrive Fantasy, you get $10 after depositing $10, and that is literally just making money. That's a bet you win right away before you actively make any other bets.
You'd be dumb not to, really.
It would be silly not to do that. So go do it. Thrive Fantasy AWAYGAMES is the code for that free cash. So yeah, dude, we are coming down the stretch here. We don't have many more Away Games podcasts to do before the end of the regular season.
We don't, and I will be more than happy to go with our plan that we had hoped to do last year of recording a little shorty after every playoff game, and hopefully there are a lot of those to do. Let's freaking get there first, but yeah, I mean, so right now the Cubs have 2 more against the Reds. Tonight will be really tough. You got Darvish and Sonny Gray, but I mean, would you rather have anybody going up against him than Darvish right now?
Yeah.
And we got 1 more against the Reds tomorrow. I believe, I'm almost positive it's Lester, and I don't remember who it is for the Reds, but I know that it's not Castillo or Bauer, so that's good.
Yes, we missed Castillo, which is great because that guy is very good.
Yep, and then you've got 4 against the Cardinals, and so, I mean, my hope is that obviously I think we're all hoping that the Cubs can sweep the Reds.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, you got to take 2 out of 3, which means you win either tonight or tomorrow. But there's a fairly reasonable shot that the Cardinals will at least lose one of the next 2 games. I believe they're facing Scherzer tonight, and I want to say Corbin tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at a decent chance that the Cubs are like within a game or possibly even tied for the division coming into a 4-game set. And then you're looking at a position where you really want to take 3 of 4. A split would be okay because you're not losing ground, I guess. But at home, you really need to be taking 3 of 4 because if you're expecting to win a series in St. Louis the last weekend of the season, I think you're hoping for a little too much.
It would be, yeah. I mean, it would be turning around what the season has been, right? Because the Cubs and Cardinals basically traded sweeps, home and home and home, to begin this year. So yeah, you can't count on winning those games at the end. Our friend Andy from Cup of Cubby Blue has said she lives in St. Louis, but she refuses to go to those final games because she has had a rough record, as did we down in St. Louis at Cubs games. So she is helping the Cubs by not attending those games. But yeah, this is going to be, I mean, this has the potential to be a final 10 games of the season that is like an all-time memorable run in a really historic rivalry. And watch the Cubs and Cardinals beat up on each other while the Brewers play absolute garbage teams and just coast to the title. The Brewers are 9-1 over their last 10 as we record this on Tuesday. And as the Cubs and Cardinals are setting up for an iconic finish to the season with 7 of the final 10 against each other in games that really, really matter. Here's who the Brewers have. San Diego for 3, Pittsburgh for 3, Cincinnati for 3, Colorado for 3. So literally, the Brewers could just win every game for the rest of the season and it wouldn't be that weird because all those teams are bad. And extra shout out to the Pirates trash organization for adding a special piece of trash news. Felipe Vazquez today, I don't know if you saw the news, but he solicited a 15-year-old. So he is suspended. Add that to the DUI machine sexual assaulter Jung Ho Gong and just the piece of shit Clint Hurdle, piece of shit in a different way, headhunting racist Clint Hurdle. What a trash team the Pittsburgh is, man.
And you know, Vasquez was also in a fight like 2 weeks ago where the other pitcher broke his hand and is now out for the season.
Yeah, with Crick, I think. So you got to be Team Crick in that fight in hindsight. Like,
by the way, quick random note. Nothing made me happier than salty Clint Hurdle telling his pitcher to throw to third to, I guess he thought somebody missed third coming around on that Kemp triple.
Yeah.
And then whoever that was, I think it was Feliz, just throws the ball like 10 feet over the third baseman's head, and Kemp scores. And it was just a fucking joy.
It was an absolute fucking joy to watch Clint Hurdle just get his ass clowned by his trash team. Clint Hurdle managing this is his 17th year, I believe, and he's had 5 winning seasons and somehow still has a job. Clint Hurdle is literally the example I use to explain white privilege to my dad, the concept of white privilege.
He's like if Mike Scioscia were bad. Like, I don't know how he has this like lifetime arrangement in Pittsburgh. Also, I don't know if it's white privilege based on how fucking red the man's face gets. I don't know that I've ever seen a redder face other than Tom Coughlin in a playoff game against the Packers, or the lead elf who's like mean to the smaller elves in the claymation Rudolph.
That is a very good. I mean, I don't know if there's a better comp than lead red-faced elf for
dentist.
Yeah. Remember when in Rudolph, when the lead elf thought the Latino players were too flashy? Do you remember that?
He thought the Latino elves should have more respect for the craft of cobbling.
Yeah, they're wearing too many chains, I believe, was one of his problems. Fuckclinthurdle.com. Yeah, that guy sucks. Good riddance, maybe, at the end
Well,
of
I'll tell you what, next year when you and I both attend social media night, we will have our Clint Hurdle is a racist on the back, hashtag fuck Clint Hurdle. We'll have our t-shirts that we can wear.
That sounds lovely to me. That we already got a plan for next year. But yeah, man, officially we have one more episode after this. And then, and then
hopefully more after that matter. But we have one more regular season episode.
One more regular season episode on our scheduled, dropping these episodes every Wednesday, finishing our 2nd season at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us there. But yes, as we've got one more regularly scheduled one, but as Adam said, we will up our schedule as the games become more important at the end, and playoff games. We will be dropping episodes much more frequently, we hope. So if you
I was just going to say, let me just say that I would love nothing more than to not go to DC with you for a 1-game playoff.
Adam and I do have tickets for a theoretical 1-game playoff in Washington, DC. And yeah, I don't want to go there with you either. Let's not let's not do that. Let's just win the division and figure it out from there.
Anyway, tell people to subscribe.
Yeah, sounds great. And rate us and review us. That would also be lovely. Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's all we got, right?
That's all we got. Are you going to try to get to any more games this week, or is that looking hard to do?
Possibly. I won't be there Tuesday night, but there's a chance I will Wednesday. I'm still figuring out when I'm going to come home, basically. I'm just living life like a stray cat. So just out in the Midwest in the car. I'll drive home at some point, but haven't quite decided when.
Sounds good. Well, enjoy, and we'll talk to you next week. Go Cubs.